Welcome. This is Dr. David Chitate. Happy Family Campaign. We have reconnected. We had been disconnected. Yes, at times, internet is like that. Remember, we are on lockdown. And also, anyway, it's technology. So from time to time, we anticipate such challenges. This is Happy Family Campaign. And for those of you who have Facebook, you just go and, go to Happy Family Campaign. That's our Facebook page. Like our page. Follow us if you can, yes. Or even send us friendship requests. We really appreciate those friendship requests. Yes, those of you who would want to contact us through WhatsApp, do so. Yes, we are on WhatsApp, and it's 2+263 77 11 50 105. Thank you very much for being with us. We are going to be doing this particular topic because unfortunately yesterday we were not able to get you on the internet because Wi-Fi was a difficulty. So anyway, today here we go. That's our topic for today. Is it proper for elderly people to remarry? Yes, many times this topic raises a lot of conflict and controversy. Yes, among relatives, because at times people don't understand why elderly people in their old age, grandparents, should at all remarry. In our own cultures across Africa, it is not easy for elderly people to remarry, or at least for people to accept this issue of elderly people remarrying. But even in other cultures too, it's not an easy topic. It's not very easy, but at least it's much better. But in our own cultures, there are many difficulties that makes it very difficult for elderly people remarriage to just easily be accepted. Of course, one of these is that most elderly people end up depending on their children as during their old age. Yes, they depend because in most cases throughout Africa, some elderly people are not able to make savings for their retirement. Not that they don't want, but at times the economic situation is such that retirement plans are very difficult. They have to be sending children to school, and at times they have to be buying property or making certain investments. But in many cases, some people retire without any retirement plan. And so as they grow old, they depend entirely on their children, both for food as well as at times, in many cases, for accommodation. So it makes it difficult. If you are going to be depending on your child for food, how then do you go ahead to make marriage plans? Who is going to support that spouse that you want to remarry? So we realize that most parents who don't have retirement plans, they shelve the idea of remarriage because of those concerns. You are even being accommodated by your children or relatives. And so you are being fed by them. Your health insurance is in their hands. So is it proper for you to take another burden and give to your children? But we do also have parents, grandparents who retire with a retirement plan in place. Yes, they have their own house or homestead. It may be in urban areas. It may also be in rural areas. So they have their own home, and they are able to supply their own food, and they have financial support from their employers. So in such cases, at times, the decision to marry might be easier, especially when the other spouse is dead. It might be easier, but even then, it's met with a lot of challenges, even in cases where the parent has enough to support himself and also to support the partner. I want us in this lecture, I want us to review a few things. I want us to review major reasons why marriage in old age is problematic. We need to understand that background. Why is marriage in old age problematic? That's the first thing we want to understand. Then finally, in this lecture, we want to have a quick review of the benefits of marriage in old age. Some of the key benefits, we want to look at them. I believe that such information, when it's available, might be helpful for those elderly people who may be thinking of remarriage. It may also be very helpful for those people who are responsible for their elderly people. Yes, for their welfare. And to the children, especially of those elderly people who finally decide to remarry and the children oppose. So I think it's important for us to understand these issues so that at least we can be good counselors where we find these kind of situations. Reason number one, why marriage in old age is problematic is because of property concerns. Elderly people may have property, and this property might need to be inherited. And so children might be looking at the property and thinking about themselves, not their parent. And so they are thinking, okay, if my grandfather remarries, what happens to the property? Because they know that sooner or later, the grandfather will die. And so after the grandfather passes away, or grandmother, what happens to property? Is the property going to pass on to the new parent who just joined? What's going to happen? And if that happens, then what will the children and close relatives of the deceased benefit? So you can see, once people have married, okay, the usual expectation is that they have common right to property. It's not like that. There are many different types of marriages that are now available. All right? Yes. So it's not always the case that when you marry somebody, when you die, they inherit your property, because you can actually protect your property. You can protect your inheritance, what you desired, the desires of your heart. You can do it legally through legal channels. It is possible during the time when elderly people are marrying to discuss these issues about property ownership. Who will own the property? It is recommended that every partner who comes to the marriage table, if they are elderly, they come up with their own wills, because usually, in many cases, the people who get married are both elderly people. Okay? We do have cases where it's an elderly person marrying a young one. That happens also. We come across this. But where we have issues where both are elderly, both might actually have property rights, when they come to the marriage table, they need to discuss and agree. It's not just come with your property and then we have common property. The other elderly, both of them might actually come with their wills already stated. Yes, that they have this kind of property, and according to their will, this is how that property will be divided if they die. And these are the kind of people who own that property. This needs to be settled, and this can be settled. There are legal solutions to that. So the fear about property need not be the main factor, although it is one of the key problematic factors when it comes to remarriage. Here's what happens. I marry, and then I marry, and it does happen. I might marry a young lady. And does that mean that my property goes to the young lady? And of course, if I die, she might decide to remarry. And so that property then moves on to somebody else, and they have children. And so that property then benefits their children. And then my own children, my own grandchildren might lose out. That happens. But there are legal tools to resolve such issues. The only thing that needs to happen is, as couples come together, if you are elderly, you cannot overlook this fact. It's something that you have to discuss between the two people, and then also discuss with those who are interested parties. It may be your children, because these may be their concerns about property, which you sweated for, and maybe your spouse, who may be late, also sweated for. And they think, why should somebody come and they lose out, and then somebody takes it over, and then you die, and then that somebody takes it over with somebody else? So these issues need to be resolved. The other thing that also problem in terms of marriage in old age, it's problems of social pressure. You will notice that we do have a few men who remarry in old age, but you hardly hear of females who remarry in old age. All right? Yes, especially in our African context, because there's that social pressure. The grandmother, people wonder, what is it that the grandmother wants in a remarriage? It's as if society says, when you are an old grandmother, everything else has ended. All right? So, social pressure is a major factor, because many women may not want that idea of what will society say? What will the community say? My relatives, what will they say? My husband's relatives, what are they going to say when I decide to remarry? And yet I'm here. I was left to take care of my husband and my children and our grandchildren. So why should I bring somebody on board? So this social pressure is a factor that needs to be looked at. But with men, I don't know, society kind of winks at men. They will say yes. In fact, they may actually encourage and say, yes, you need to be remarried because who will take care of you? Who, if you are sick, who is going to bath you and all that? Daughter-in-law? No. And so issues about your own welfare, who is going to cook for you, for example. You know, you may have your own homestead. So if you don't marry as a man, the question is, how are you going to live? Because of the toxic manhood that society has brought us with. So people wonder, how can that be? You can't stay without a woman because traditionally it is a belief that man needs a woman in order to make it. Bathing, eating, cleanliness, cleaning the house. Because in the minds of many people, all these are female duties. So if the female has gone, so what's going to happen? That's the social component. And then, of course, there are people who also have religious beliefs that, well, yeah, you should not remarry or you should marry. Religious beliefs are found on both sides of the coin. We know that one of the main problem is opposition from children. The children of the elderly people may be the ones who will oppose marriage of their grandfather or grandmother. They seem to wonder why. You say, okay, because I want somebody, if they are men, they say, okay, I want somebody who will take care of me. They say, you go to an old people's home. Of course, you know, in Africa, we don't have, this is not a very common thing. A very small percentage of the elderly are taken care of in old people's homes. The majority of the elderly are either they are being taken care of by. So we are saying it is something that we need to deal with. This is a problem we need to address. Children can be the main obstacle to the marriage of elderly people. And at times it's in good faith, but sometimes it's just because children become too selfish. They are not so much interested in the welfare of their parents, but their main issue is the property that will come. And for some fathers, some elderly people, when they remarry, we've seen situations where they even have children in their old age. Remember, we've discussed this. A man can cause pregnancy. And we find if these are men who have their own property, they can attract young ladies. And it does happen. In 9.3, we did mention that young men and young ladies can actually be attracted to marry elderly people. So if that happens, at times the young wife may demand that she wants a child, knowing that the husband will die earlier than her. She will say she wants a child, so that at least after the death of the husband, she is indeed a member of this family and can rightfully inherit the things, the property, because there is a child, there is a bond. So, of course, communities would say, yes, for sure, she can inherit and the child can also inherit. It's all about property and security after death. So at times, the young women who are married, they use children as something to get them security, especially after the death of the husband. So they will insist. But then here is where the complication comes. The children of these elderly men may not buy this idea, because they know that if the father dies, the children from this marriage becomes their own burden, according to African beliefs and culture, traditions.